Disrespect. to clarify, as the song goes, she ain't no lady, she's my wife. So, this is a pretty serious story, and I think about it a lot, and it involves a lot of shame and guilt for me. But when I think about it, I always chuckle. In the same way that when I remember back to preschool and Jason St. Marie went out back and stuck his tongue on the metal fence, and you think about that, and that's a serious story, but it's also, you just chuckle because it's so ridiculous, and you can see in hindsight how ridiculous it is for some preschooler to stick his tongue onto the metal fence. When I was 19, the phone rang, and I answered. It was my mom. She was calling from Berlin, New Hampshire. And when I answered, it was her. I knew it was bad news because she'd been gone for 3 or 4 days, and she was supposed to be gone for 28 days. She was in rehab, and she wasn't supposed to be calling us yet. So when she called, I knew it was bad news. So I asked her where she was. She said she was at a payphone, and would I come get her? And I was 19. I spent quite a few years being really angry. I wasn't even invited to the intervention because they were worried I was going to be too angry and mess things up. But I promised to be good, and so I went and I said things that were true, and that were loving, that were supportive. But she called me up, and I knew she needed my help now, because Berlin, New Hampshire is not a nice place, and she's up there with a bag that my sister packed for her a couple days ago, and she's at a payphone on the street. But I also know that I don't want to be the one who helps her run away from rehab, from this thing that I think she needs. So as she's sitting there on the at the payphone in Berlin, New Hampshire, I say, I don't know. I got to think about it. And we hang up. And I leave her there on the street in Berlin, New Hampshire. And I don't remember what I thought about next. But then the phone rang like an hour later, and it was my mom again. And she called her sister, and her sister was going to come pick her up, and I was going to go get her the next day. And no amount of stubbornness or righteous indignation or anything else was going to change that. So the next day I go and I pick my mom up. And I'm pissed, and we write back, and we're silent. And we never talk about that conversation. We never talk about her calling me and me being, I don't know if I can come pick you up. I don't know if I can be your help. 6 years later, I leave a wedding, pulled over, arrested for DUI. No accident, nobody's hurt, but this is part of the shame. And so part of my way of dealing with trauma is to pretend that like things aren't real. So I ignore the fact that one of the stipulations to getting a license back is do a certain number of counseling hours. And so by the time I figure it out, the only thing available to me so I can get my license back on time is this weekend program. So I make my reservation. Guess where it is? It's in Berlin, New Hampshire, right? I have no idea. I make no connection. So I take the bus part way. My mom drives me the rest of the way. Guess what building it's in? It's the same one. And I'm totally clueless. At one point there was like some tingle when somebody was like, you know, they use the other half of this building for people in rehab. So when the people are detoxing at night, like we might hear some crazy shit, right? But there's just a tiny tingling, right? Snowstorm comes in over the weekend. The plan is my girlfriend was supposed to come up and pick me up on Sunday. She decides she's not comfortable driving through all that snow. I call my mom. Right? And I call my mom, and she says, what a mom's got to say, yes. So she drives up to pick me up on Sunday. And it's this old, like, converted Victorian house, and it's up on a hill. So she's got to park the car at the bottom of the hill, and she's walking up through the snow and the wind. She's got these like light sneakers on, and the snow's like up over her sneakers, and her feet are getting wet. She's got her jeans, and she's got her green LL Bean jacket that she hasn't zipped up, and she keeps like trying to like fold it back over from the wind. And her hair's getting whipped around her glasses. She's squinting and looking up. All the while, she's walking up to get me at the same place that she left, and I didn't come pick her up from. And I see her, and I look out the window, and I don't see any of that. I was like, thank God I get to go. And so we get in her warm car, and we drive back to her house, and we don't say anything. We don't say anything, because I don't see it. I don't see how all in the family this moment is. I don't see this connection that we have. I don't see how much of her is in me, and I don't see what she's doing is showing me, like, this is the difference between a parent's love and a child's love. And this is how, when you can do it, you must do it. And this is what it means to love your kid. I couldn't see any of that. Years later, oh shit, that was the same place. Right? And now I see the connection. I see how much of her there is in me, and how much we are all in the same family. And man, it's fantastic, right? I realized what we should have done that day is gone back and just not gotten in the car, just hugged and cried in the street, but we didn't, right? But now, I make piñatas. I make piñatas for my kids' birthdays. I make piñatas for my wedding. I made the Death Star piñata twice. I make dragon piñatas. I make all kinds of piñatas, and every time I make a piñata, I see my mother's hand holding up that strip of newspaper and pulling down the water and the flour. And every time I make a piñata, I make sure my mom knows. And I try to show my kids what my mom showed me. Thank you.